Lagos continues to count the cost of the widespread destruction being visited on the lives and property by aggrieved elements, questions are intensifying in respect of what the authorities should have done to avert the unfortunate turn of events. Who ordered the attacks on the protesters? If, as the military top echelons claim, it wasn't from them? And just how many laws are being broken in the current state of lawlessness around the country? Can restitution ever be achieved? Right now, we're being joined for a conversation on this by Abdul Jalili Owonikoko, lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, and managing counsel, Synergy Attorneys Lagos. Welcome to the program, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a terrible time to be in the public domain now in Nigeria. But thank God for where we are today. I think things look a bit better than it was yesterday.
Well, this morning, AJ Owonikoko SA, and we had an hour-length conversation with the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. And we brought the interview to a close at the point when we were asking him, what is the road ahead? We have had these issues with NSAS protests and violence across the country, particularly in Lagos. Now, what suggestions do you have for government? And what's your view of what has happened so far and how we can move forward from this point? What are those key issues that we should begin to focus on now?
It's a testy time for Nigerians, and the experience of the last few days clearly confirmed that democracy is not nurtured on mere wish. Democracy itself is a project, and there are institutional props that we must all strive to put in place to consolidate it. The event of the last 2 days has touched every family in Nigeria, either remotely or directly, and lessons have to be learned. The first thing I've observed is that we have made light of appreciating the appropriate rules of engagement by police and the populace, and distinguishing that from rules of engagement of the military. I recall that almost 17 years ago, and it's so unfortunate, a case turned essentially on this that involved General Olusegun Obasanjo, General Muhammadu Buhari, and the retired and late IG MD Yusuf. The election of 2003 was highly militarized, and Alhaji MD Yusuf's biggest concern was how could we proceed further and reduce or completely eliminate the involvement of military in resolving civil disputes. And he explained to me that the proper process of engagement of the relevant agencies charged with law enforcement and security enforcement was that the civil police are the direct contact and point of interface with the public. It's when things overwhelm them that they invite the paramilitary, which are the anti-mobile police force, whose job is to restore order. And when these two agencies find themselves unable to hold their own, then they make a special request and a report to the commander-in-chief, indicating to the commander-in-chief that matters have already gone beyond their own control, and what is now required is enforcement of law and order and enforcement of security. At that stage, what should happen is that the ordinary police force will be withdrawn from the theater of war, and the military, who are trained to enforce authority of state, are then brought in, because they are not trained to relate with ordinary people. They are actually trained to suppress insurrection. Now, what happened on Tuesday indicates to us that we also need to have rule of engagement between the populace exercising their right to freedom of expression and the law enforcement agency, so that when that happens, which was what I think the governor of Lagos, Mr. Governor, was trying to do in the last 2 weeks, is that a clear compass. He was trying to be the bridge between the protesting populace and the law enforcement agencies, and be a buffer to avoid the kind of thing that we saw on Tuesday. It did not succeed, but there are no written rules of engagement when it comes to this. And we must, after this incident, develop that rule where police will know that when there is peaceful protest, their job would be to facilitate the peaceful conduct for as long as the people remain peaceful. And that the military will know that on no account are they required to get involved. I pity Mr. Governor. In all his interview, I watched part of it. By some accident, I ran into it while I was waiting for this connection. And you could see him consistently expressing frustration at the fact that he has no control over the military arm of security enforcement. In fact, that was confirmed when he said that after 2 attempts to speak with the president, the chief of defense staff, on Mr. President's instruction, called him. Because there is no line of command between a governor and the military. It's only through the commissioner of police in a state that the governor is given a role as the chief security officer to superintend law and order business. So the first lesson I believe we must take from this incident, before we go to details, is that there must be a clearly defined rules of engagement of a law enforcement agency, not security agencies, when it comes to interfacing with the public, expressing some form of protest that they want to bring to the attention of government. We must not lose sight of that missing link.
Thank you, sir. It's wider than a missing link. It's a huge chasm, if we all heard what the governor said. And I want your general thoughts on the militarized nature of our democracy. Nigeria's democracy by 2023 will be 24 years old. 16 out of those 24 years, we've been led by former generals, retired generals. Can we talk first about the absurdity of that situation and what we're calling a democracy and the very real consequences which we are seeing now? I actually thought about asking the governor if he would ask for a cancellation of Operation Crocodile Smile 6, which started on that Black Tuesday, funny that, if you believe in coincidences, and is set to run till December 31st. But I canceled that question because it's simply not up to him. What kind of system are we running exactly?
Thank you. I think it will be inappropriate for us to isolate people that have had public service in the military from getting involved in our democracy. In fact, by hindsight, the interjection of General Obasanjo in 1999 as the first new president facilitated one of the strategic moves that brought the military back under the authority of the civilian regime. You remember when he came to power, the first thing he did was to retire all politically tainted military officers.
Did we need a general to do that? Did we need a former general to do that?
Well, you need a general to do that because he had an understanding of the psyche of the military, that they were no longer feeling that they were subject to authority of civilian government. Not all of them. I think those who are tasted power as military governors, ministers, members of regional relief council, they could not fathom the idea that a civilian person would be ordering them around.
This is the problem. They still can't, apparently.
Now, but that cleared the way for what we call the professional military men, who now understand that their role in governance is not to rule. And that has been the reason all the threats and provocations in the last 20 years has not led to the military taking over, because with international support and education, they seem to understand that. However, don't forget, each time we try to inject them into resolving civil conflict, we are giving them signals that the civilians are not able to hold their own. And ideas begin to generate in the barracks, where unless there is war, a lot of people are idle. So to keep them busy, some of these activities are lined up, even Operation this and that, so they don't get rusty and become war weary. That is the whole idea. But it was not meant to do what they have not been, where we are now combining military and police to be carrying out purely civil enforcement activities. That has led to even the police being influenced unduly by the mentality of the military, which is to enforce, not necessarily to engage and prevent or anticipate law, threat to law and order. And what happened on Tuesday also shows to us that the president has to sit up. We cannot have a lame duck president only 1 year into a 4-year tenure. Lame duck president starts almost at the tail end of the regime when you are about to hand over to another person. You cannot have a crisis of this nature on our hands, and the president will not speak to Nigerians for the past 3 weeks. He has that special advantage of the bully pulpit, where when he makes a pronouncement and people listen to him, they get the sense that the president is in control. When the president is not speaking to us and things continue to degenerate, people who are mischief makers read that as evidence of weakness of Mr. President, which may not be so, and they want to exploit it. Now, why is there such a pattern in the last 2 days of the mayhem and acting we have seen? People are targeting certain symbols of authority, the court system. Individuals that seem to have political clout. That is suggestive of some organized forces behind what is going on. Because you cannot tell me that this kind of so-called hoodlums in Ikoyi, who went to burn down the High Court, are not in complaint with those who went to burn down the Oyibo motor, whatever they just created, and burnt down all the vehicles, and those who are targeting police stations all over the place. Why is that level of symmetry in what they are doing? There's some coordination somewhere. And we must draw attention to this worrisome development. There are forces, like Mr. Governor said, and I'm tempted to agree with him, that we need to be very cautious in identifying as a source. They have nothing to do with this NSAS. My own daughter had a shouting match with us in our house in last week. She kept on going to Lekki, tall, whatever you call it. She kept going, a girl. And I said, look, this is their generation project. Just be careful. Go and express yourself. A country like ours cannot suppress the initiative of our youth, especially when they are now adopting strategies that we are all embracing and praising them for, and then eventually make them regret what they are doing. Apart from that, there is now the challenge that we need to have a demographic audit of our youth. It's not the same guys who go to Lekki Toll Gate, dancing, articulating their views, doing flyers, that are the ones that went to burn down the High Court premises. But they are also youth. What has been the plan of Nigeria for those ones? Those ones who will store at Lekki are still doing their business while they are there, on the internet, in their phone. Money is rolling to their account. The guys who stop going to invade the Palace of Oba of Lagos, there are people that ordinarily don't have 3 hours sleep. They don't go to bed until about 2 a.m. and they have to wake up at 5. In the alleys there, they don't have a bedroom. So anytime there's anarchy, it's an opportunity for them to assert their own authority too. And so we can't continue to ignore them, thinking that until something like this happens, we then acknowledge their existence. No serious country, no serious society allow those kind of people, migrants, to be going about without provision for how they can be integrated into the system where they think they have a stake. They don't have any stake in our country. They see all these as instruments and symbols of oppression. The reason why they cannot make it in life. So when the chance comes, the same people that go and queue in somebody's house in Bodilon, collecting 5,000 naira, when the time comes for them to go after the person, they will consider like 5,000 is nothing compared to what this man is sitting upon. And then it becomes easy target to go after such people. We cannot continue that way. This country has to rethink our destination. It must be more inclusive. Law and order must be preceded by social order and social justice.
I mean, I cannot agree with you more. You've just hit the nail on the head, because obviously those that are burning places here and there cannot be those that protested. You know, they can't be the NSAS protesters that started their movement on Twitter. They can't be. These are hoodlums, and let's call them for what they are. But like you said, these hoodlums too are part of society. And let me tell you something. The most important social scheme ever is spelled in 3 words: J-O-B. Job. How can we give these people jobs to do? How can we reflate the economy? How can these people feel like they belong?
Thank you. We have an economy that has been stagnant for close to about 6 years. The last I checked last night, unemployment rate has shot to 27% of the working population. That's minus underemployment. where majority of our working class are now categorized. Full unemployment is 27 point something percent. That in any society is a red flag for chaos. Now, there are two ways to go about this. I'm not an economist, but I also am a business person. It's either we redistribute what is available, so at least as a stopgap measure to give people a sense of inclusion, or we have to all be ready to make sacrifice and create fresh wealth. The budget for Nigeria next year, which is very, very worrisome, is predicated on about a deficit budget, half of which, almost of it, is supposed to be directed at managing our debt. So where is the extra resource to address the genuine claim of these young Nigerians? Unless those in authority are willing to make sacrifices, not just to go and dip their hands in what is even inadequate as state resources, but what of their own over-endowment, over-remuneration that people have been talking about. I was hoping when Mr. Speaker spoke eloquently like a few days ago, that what we are going to hear from the National Assembly was that in view of the pressing need to address the need of the police and the young people, they are willing on their own to forbear 50% of their total remuneration the next 1 year while we work out a more holistic response to the need that is confronting us in terms of police welfare, in terms of the youth unemployment and youth frustration. If they had done that along with Mr. President saying that there's urge to say they are dissolving NSAS, I can assure you these are young men, even those one you call miscreants. They will see now practical demonstration of sacrifice by the elite they thought had forgotten them. I hope, as I'm saying this, they will look at that. It is a damper on the crisis. If we can hear some practical sacrifice offering from those who are the elite in government in terms of reducing their own take-home pay, which people find scandalous. General Obasanjo, when he was president, tried to send it. He was unable to do it. Even President Buhari also mentioned the same thing, cynically when he was presenting the budget, about the overcompensation that the parliamentarians have assigned to themselves, including governors, ex-governors, in a country where we can't even afford to pay people 30,000 naira monthly wage, which I now understand is equivalent of buying a bag of rice. Will a family live on rice alone? Can a family, assuming that salary was paid, which is not even guaranteed, can a family, even a bachelor working, can he live on one bag of rice or equivalent of that in a month? We are faced with a serious existential crisis, and we cannot get out of it without people ready to make sacrifices, especially our elite.
It's an issue that we brought up when we were discussing with the governor, and it's about restitution. The governor of Lagos State is talking about another investigation into what happened on Tuesday. And also earlier, he had announced a compensation fund of 200 million for victims of police brutality.
I'm not getting the audio.
Hello? I was talking about restitution. Can you hear me now? Hello? Owonikoko SAN? Hello?
I'm sorry, I'm lost on audio.
So you are not hearing me at all?
No, I'm hearing you now.
You can hear me now. I was saying that earlier on we talked about restitution, and the state government is investigating what happened on Black Tuesday. And there's also talk about compensation fund of 200 million announced by the Lagos State governor. But yesterday, we saw many innocent business owners whose businesses may not even be insured, or persons whose premises were attacked and they had nothing to do with police brutality. Is there any redress that they can seek legally? And who should provide that compensation for them?
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to matters of unorganized violence that is not attributed to state actors, the only recourse that is reliable to address these victims to is the insurance. But Nigerians are yet to imbibe the culture of insurance. These are what will be otherwise regarded as acts of God. In that instance, the government can step in purely out of benevolence. But we are having a thing where even the government itself is technically insolvent. Leave Lagos out of the whole thing. The entire country, apart from Lagos, is almost insolvent. So, notwithstanding that, as part of effort to douse tension and reconnect trust with the people, I commend Mr. Governor for the little gesture, but we need to do more than that. In periods of this nature, priority should be to restore trust. And whatever that takes should not be considered too expensive. Mr. Governor, I must confess, I've not had anything to do with him since he became governor, apart from being his lawyer in the election petition. I've never one day spoken with him, but I know him as somebody who is humane naturally. He is a father figure. You can see the effort he took in the last 2 weeks to engage the young people, connect with them, even becoming their emissary to Mr. President, taking their demands over there and reporting back. In fact, I believe that his media department ought to look at his interview this morning, which was very revealing, and see how they can make a soundbite of like 20, 30 minutes there to reach out to those who did not have the opportunity to listen to him. Whatever it is that is required, the resources to make peace, to restore order, can never be too expensive.
Thank you very much, AJ Owonikoko, SAN, for joining us this morning on The Morning Show.